So, fellow Kollel members, this is Baruch Fleischman, and you know I am at the Tikkun Elevator Kollel, and we're on page Resh Ches Tzadi in the Zohar Kodesh Matok Midvash version. We're going to read the top here. I just want to give you an idea what we're going to do here. We're going to get into this. This is a little Zohar here for the 6th day of the week of Parshas Pikudei. We got into the concept of the palaces of Olam Habriya. Now, if I just mentioned that there are palaces, so they're like seven steps. And the lowest step, is called Livnas HaSapir. He says, the Zohar has been saying that Hosheah, the prophet, was able to reach this 7th step. That means the lowest step. In other words, it's a step up from the highest level of Olam Yetzirah in the spiritual world to the lowest level of Olam Habriya, which is called the palace of Livnas HaSapir. And from this place is an entrance into much higher world and a vision of Olam Atzilus. But at the same time, this place, this doorway, is also an exit for fallen Kedusha, for things that go wrong, the wrong way, to fall down. And the Zohar wanted to say yesterday that Hosheah, he had to marry. This is what the prophecy says, an Ashes Zanunim, a woman of ill repute, shall we say. It makes no sense. But because it meant that he had to go down into the depths, and he said this, I thought this was one of the deepest Torahs I really thought, for myself. Is that he had to go down to the depths to find out why the Yidden are pulled over to the Yetzer Hara. What is it about? Where is the level of the attack coming from what places? Where are the places that cause us to fall? And he saw them. He saw all the way up, and he saw all the way down. That seems to be what the idea of the Zohar wants to say. So let's just read across the top here on the 6th day of the Parsha of Pikudei, and we're in the first Heichel called Livnas HaSapir. It says, Heichelim de Misa'ava, the palaces of filth, of Tumah. Kulhu Misa'avin Laman is the Bagbon. All of them make Tomei, any man that goes into them, that clings to them. Baldach Chesiv, on this it's written, Kach L'cha Eish Zanunim. He's saying this here the Hashem is saying this to Hosheah. Marry a harlot. V'chi Neviah D'Kshut Itzrech Lodo. He says, that a true prophet would have to come into a situation like this. Al begin the Azer Le Barnash the Allah Be'inu Neichlin. But we want to say like this, that it's forbidden for a person to enter in, to start looking. Allah means to go in, Be'inu Neichlin, into these palaces, into the palaces of Tumah. Now, it doesn't take a whole lot, because we're surrounded by it all the time, to figure out where the palaces of Tumah start. Begin the lo yismeshaka basayich abasreichels. People shouldn't go there because they could be pulled after it. Gegam to the Abed Noach, like say for example what happened to Noach. Dersiv v'yesht, and he drank min hayayin v'yishkar, and he got drunk v'yiskal, and he revealed himself, which meant that perversion was brought into the world. V'Hosheah dachil le'istakla be'inan heichlin, but I had to see what dachil to me means. He was fried. Let me see. V'chadachil hoya misyari. Yeah, that's right. V'hoshua dachil histaklo be'ina heichlim, and Hosheah the prophet, he was afraid to look into these places. They ista'ava, because they make whatever comes into that pure. They take the purity away from a person and make them filthy. Behul Yisrael is the Baku, but he said Behechlem this to Abu Behul Yisrael, because he needed to go to the place where the Jews fall. Viz the Baku and stuck onto. The law Yismashach Abasraichel, that they shouldn't be pulled after those places. He needed to know where they were. Kama Dachsebetz is written like this. This was written by Noach, V'yesh min hayayin v'yishkar v'yiskal, that he drank from the wine, he became drunk, and he revealed himself, was naked, Ad Amalai, until they said to him, Kach lecha esha zanunim, and see, he had to go all the way. Now, I think that what he's saying is maybe a little too deep for me. He says the place that Noah fell into is a place of tremendous, tremendous tumah. It's one of the deepest, perhaps, maybe that's what he's saying, palaces of tumah. And he drank and he got drunk, so here you have drinking and to excess, until the point where he became naked. He didn't. I don't know exactly what that means. We'll see the matuk, what he says. So this is about Hosheah again. And then he went and he took this Gomer bas divlayim. I don't know what these words mean. We'll see. Lemindach b'mad is the baku is the abba, because marrying her, whatever that meant that he was able to be able to see what caused something like, say, Noach to get involved in something so low. V'shavku raza de hamanusa, and he has to abandon the secret of faith, turn his back on it, begin Kael Nechor, and go to a place of a foreign God, not the real God. Valdo, and this it's written, Chama migo heichalodah. So he was able to get to this palace. That is, we're talking about in Kedusha of the Olam Habriya. He was able to get to that palace. Chama migo heichalodah. He saw from the doorway of that palace, Sherusa the Goldargin, the beginning of all the levels of Kedusha. So let's go and see the Matuk B'Devash and help me out a little bit here. So the Matuk B'Devash said, V'omar ki, and this phrase from the Zohar is Echelo de B'Sa'ava, a palace of filth. Kuhu Misa'ava and the Mada is the Beku. It makes everybody filthy, whoever clings to it. Hechlos hatuma kulam matameim, the mission is davik bem. Anybody who goes into the hechlos of tuma will become impure with the filth of tuma. Ki bechem hu shorish kol ha'taivos, because in those palaces are also the chambers for the roots of all the animal desires of olam ha'zecher shachaguf nehene mehem. So just think about it. You have a body, you have to keep it alive, you have to have taste, you have to have desire. That is part of the body. But there are also roots in there that go the other way. Ba'al dog sivin, it's written like that. So take this harlot woman. So you see that a true prophet has to take a harlot? Like Hosheah? He has to take a harlot. Kolomer v'chi efsha lefarish nevuah zu b'pshuta shalokach mamash esha zaynis. So the Matuk says, wait a minute. What the Zohar is saying is it's impossible to interpret this that he actually went out and married a harlot. Could not be what it means. Allah, but rather, he said, Soda Inyan, the secret of this is, begin the aser lay lebar naj the Allah be'ina hechlin, because it's forbidden for people to come into those palaces. The fisha asalo the adan they kanda ba'osam hechalos atameim, because a person should never get near any of these kinds of situations. Begin to lo yis meshacha b'sraichu, because so they shouldn't be pulled after them. Kagam the Abed Noach, like Noach, for example. So that phrase, he got drunk, and he was naked. Pirisha niknas. Now let's look at this now. Matuk B'Devash. He said Pirish niknas b'chikiru. So he started investigating of his kalto and using his seichel, in other words, in his mind's eyes, behechlos asitra akra. Start thinking about some of the taibas of his body that he doesn't do, but he wants. Libdoik b'chato shal Adam harishon, because what happens is he's going to come and revisit the sin of the first man who wanted to know about all these senses and the roots of them and physicality, which is compared to Tuma. And he says, L'das ma choya inyan she'sachta hazera hanavim. So what exactly was the question of crushing the grapes, squeezing the juice out of the grapes for Adam shasa mishamre hayan mashakir? So what he's saying is like this: he wanted to go into the root of this investigation, maybe to find out what it is that makes you drunk. Shalov ne'emer anavemu anve rosh, that your grapes are the grapes of the heaven. Eshkalos mudoros maruros lamo chamas teninin yemen. One moment, please. So I wanted to take a moment. I went over here and I got my art scroll, and I wanted to come over to the pasuk that we're being quoted here in the Matak B'Devash. The pasuk is this one, number 32. Now he's talking here about what was being sought by Noah as he wanted to understand. He's saying something like this: the secret of drunkenness. And as he walked into that nakedness, so he said, for the vineyard is from the vineyard of Sodom, which is the place of perversion, and from the fields of Gomorrah. Their grapes are grapes of gall. I'm not sure what gall means. So clusters of bitterness were given them. This is the fruit of that investigation. This is what he's trying to say, and meanwhile that Hosheah is sent into this. So let's see a little bit more. Let's see, let me get back and find where I was in the Matak B'Devash. The Matak B'Devash wrote like this. I'll read it again from this place. Pirush sheniknas b'chakirusa v'v'sichlusa v'behechlos ha'sitra achra, because he entered in his mind and his investigative techniques into the palaces of the other side, livdoik b'cheto shal Adam Rishon, and he wanted to cling to the same mistake that Adam Rishon made. They'll say like this, is that we all have taivas. If you want to investigate the source of your taivas, if you really want to understand it, maybe you have a good intention when you start, but you'll taste the taiva. The taiva is very strong, will take you. So it doesn't. So he says, "L'das ma hoye ha'inyan shesachta Chava anavim v'Adam." So what exactly was the inyan where Chava squeezed the grape to make the juice for Adam, and then he shasa mishamra hayayin hamashacher, and he drank from the dregs of the wine, the part of it that makes you drunk. Now there's a whole metaphor in this, which could be thought about. We'll see it again sometime. We'll just build on it. Shalov ne'emer, because on this they have this quote which we just read. Anivenu anve roshos eshkalos maruros lamo chamas tenyanim yain teninim chamas teninim yenim. That the wine of the snake, that's the wine we're talking about drinking from. But even Noah fell into this. That he was extended out and he clung to the Sitra Achra. Let's go on a little bit more. Hosheah, the prophet, he didn't want, he was afraid to look down into that hole. Even to a holy place, it was his standing in a holy place. Now the metaphor is like this. It's one thing that we're living in the world that we're living in, and we're surrounded by filth every place. Just go to the corner, it's just there everywhere. But on the other hand, if you were a person who through meditation and prayer and Torah study was able to reach beyond the world of Yetzirah and actually look at and see and enter into the Hechel, the first Hechel of Livdus Asapir in Olam Abriya, it's a tremendous, tremendous accomplishment of highness that a person can see from that. He's be able to see Kedusha way, way beyond. And then he wants to turn around and get to that place, and Hashem says to him, you have to look down the tube. You have to look deep from this place, which is the entrance to this. It's also the place where you could see the exit and the ultimate fall of where all the fall goes from. You could see both places. The Lo Yismashaka Basraihu, he didn't want to go there. He was afraid he was going to be pulled after it. It's written like this by Noah. V'yesh mina yayin v'yishkar v'yizgal. So if everything went bad, once he started going that path, and there is some secret about which I don't know yet, about the squeezing of the grape, of the squeezing of the juice of the wine out of the grape and drinking from the part that makes you drunk. Until the Kodesh Baruch Hu said to him, and ultimately he says you have to take a harlot for a wife. Now the Matak wants to help us, and he says this: Pirish, go ahead. Go look at the pictures. Go into the building. Go look at it. And you're going to give birth to all kinds of bad stuff, your children. Because there's also all different kinds of tumah in these places. All details of tumah. Where Hashem said, take for yourself. He said, what? If HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is promising it, that it wouldn't hurt him, and that he wouldn't become tameh through all of these people. Not these people, all of these palaces of tumah. That goes one deeper and deeper and deeper. Ki lo yared mamish desoch dargos haklipos kamon Noach, because he never went down into those levels. Let me see. Ki lo yared mamish. He never really went down into the dargos of klipa like Noach did. Rak his stakel the sochan, but rather he was able to look into them. So therefore he was promised that he wouldn't trip and fall and get stuck in them. Now what does that mean? This is some kind of sentence that needs some interpretation. So he says the palaces of harlotry, they are called Gomor. Because what is it that the Nukva the Klipa does? Gomeris or Meshalemes as Bekudas HaZohar. She is the, gotta get this, they always say like this, is that the Samach Mem rides the harlot. What appears to us as the seductress is really being driven by a man behind her. That is a male force behind her. And he says that this is what he says, Ki Hanukva de Klipa Gomeres, she completes, a Meshalemes, and makes fulfilled, as Pekudas HaZohar, the commands of her male part. Ki Kol Pa'ulas HaSamach Men, because everything the Samach Men does, Hu Ayedeh Nukvasa Hatameya, by using his woman, his female, filthy female side. Now, filthy is a hard word. It's not really the word. It's Talmudic, but we're talking about that which brings us into lowness. V'devalim, what is that name? Romans b'man b'chotoyim as Adam Arisha. So that word is a remez in some way to what the sin was that pulled Adam Arisha. Kamo hayesh omrim, so like they say like that, that it was a fig, that was the first fruit. V'hu lashon divlas te'enim, so this is like a pressed figs. The Mefarish Hatam, it explains the reason. Rama Siva Lo HaKodesh Baruch Hu came. So why does Hashem tell him that he has to get in? Let me go back over this. He says one of the possibilities is that she was Gomer. She was the one that completed the command of the male aspect. Bas the volim. So because there's so people that say that it was like the fruit that she actually gave was a fig. Hayesh Omer Sheta'ena Hosheah, that the fig, what was the apple? It was a fig. Lashon Divlas Ta'enim, like a pressed figs. And before Shatam Lama Tziva Hashiva Lo HaKodesh Baruch Hu came, so why did he explain why the Kodesh Baruch Hu wanted to do this? They the Mindach B'Mad is the Baku of the Ista'av. But das, in order to be able to know, B'ma Nizdabku, what are they clinging onto? V'nitma'u Yisrael, and the Jewish people became Tamei. V'shavku Raza Deramanusa, V'azvu as Soda Amuna, Shihashchina. So these people, what causes them? What is it that allows them to turn their back on pure reality, which is the Shechina, who loves us? Begin Kael Nechor, to go to something else, to go to the Klipa. So therefore, this is the reason. You want to know what's the connection over there. Became raw as so therefore he knew this before this first Hekel. Shul Sherusa the Goldargan. This first Hekel is the beginning of all levels. Chaschala shall call Madregas a Kedusha, because as he stood in this Hekel Livnas Ashat Saper, that his mind had transported him, his Kedusha had transported him to that place, and he was able to look up into the most wonderful oneness, and then be able to look down and find, why doesn't one to be part of this Yichud? What is the pull to it? Mikan Rob as Hechelos Atameim. So there, from this place, which we said was the doorway up, the doorway down, he was able to look at the place of the palaces of Tumah. And so he was able to see. Maybe I should be learning Hosheah now. I'm thinking about it. Where is the place exactly that the Jewish people fell? Where's the place of Tumah that we cling to, that keeps us away from the Shechina? So he should be able to know the place of the flaw. And rebuke them about this. And find a way to bring them back into goodness. This is Baruch Fleischman, Erev Shabbos, called Tuv, Yesod. This is Yesod. In the Heichel is a Kedusha, Parsha Pikudei.